Namaste. My name is Neena Rai, and I'm the author of the books Amazing Ayodhya and Adbhut Ayodhya. Today we have with us on the power table Mr. Hindol Sengupta, Professor Dr. Hindol Sengupta, who is an author and has written 13 books. You're also an award winning historian, and at present you are teaching at OP Jindal Global University, where I believe you are the director
Of the Jindal India Institute.
of the Jindal. So,
That's right. Thank you very much. I teach here. You're right, Neena. I teach international relations at the Jindal School of International Affairs, and I'm director of the Jindal India Institute, which is like a think tank inside Jindal University.
very nice.
And that's across departments and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of work and research that we're doing there. But thank you very much. Very kind of you to invite me, and namaste to all your viewers. It's it's not a happy moment, of course, in our history.
And before we begin, I just want to say Om Shanti to the departed souls. Bhagwan Divangat Atmaon ko Sadgati de. And it's a very sad time that we are starting this. Generally, we start on very happy occasions and we discuss lighter and nicer topics. Let's just go straight to the Pahalgam issue first. Let's just tackle that first. I want to ask you, when the terrorists killed the men, and I believe there were some children also who were killed according to certain reports, the women begged to be killed. And the terrorists did not kill them, and they said, Nahin marenge, tum Modi ko jaake bolo. This chilling statement is to be given to Prime Minister Modi. Why do you think they said that, and what message were they sending to him?
No, look, this kind of thing has been done. If you read the history of Islamism
Yeah.
and Islamist terror, this is all of this is an old playbook, should I say? This is designed to create maximum terror,
Okay.
maximum anxiety. It is designed to create maximum insecurity among the population. Now, all of this has been tried and tested in various parts of the world. Of course, it's been done in various parts of India also. And now, of course, the most stark incident has happened in Pahalgam. Now, remember, for a long time, locals and tourists were not targeted
Correct.
in Kashmir.
Yes.
This is usually the target was always security forces.
Yes.
Right.
That would be militancy.
And that was militancy. This is also militancy, but this actually crosses over to an even more dangerous phase where clearly tourists are being targeted. And this is a very critical phase because, as you know, last year I think 1.6 million tourists went to Kashmir. I mean, I remember I was shooting and researching a book and shooting a film in Kashmir on young women achievers in Kashmir. And I kid you not, at 11 o'clock in the night last year, in the month of late July into August, at 11 o'clock in the night, you couldn't walk on the street opposite the Dal Lake. Such were the crowds.
Wow.
There were hundreds and hundreds of people having ice creams in coffee shops, sitting around, having a conversation, listening to music. It was unrecognizable from anything you had ever seen about Kashmir.
And
And there is an attempt to stop this. And I think Omar Abdullah and everybody else in Kashmir who is part of the administration recognize this, that this is a dramatic effort to try and stop this.
But what we are seeing in Kashmir is not new, because this is happening in Bengal as well, where Hindu families were targeted. So, what are we experiencing? Is this purely hate against Hindus, or is this hate against Modi? That is why they said this.
So I think all of these things have also got got in a sense they've been brought together. They haven't come together organically, but they've been brought together. Please remember, when we think about Prime Minister Modi, we are thinking about a political leader, but in the eyes of the Islamists, he is a Hindu figure who is against Islam. That's how they see this, right? And yet, the fact that so many millions of Muslims thrive in India and are every day going about their business really riles and irritates the Islamist mind, because they would like to see incessant civil war in India, and they are trying their best to egg that civil war. You know, you think about that zip line video,
Yeah.
for instance,
Yeah.
right? It is one of the most blood chilling things I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah, because that man knows he's
The
pushing.
poor guy
Yeah.
who's looking in front, who's basically going to zip through the line, so to
Yes.
speak,
Yes.
wearing a little helmet, and who's obviously Hindu. He is smiling. He's looking at the wonderful like trees and the
Yeah.
skies and
Yeah.
stuff.
And they're shooting.
And he obviously is not noticing that there are sounds coming from the sort of from the ground, but it's quite obvious and that the man behind him,
He knows
the
about it.
operator,
Yeah.
he knows what's happening because as a Kashmiri he knows the sounds of gunshots.
No, he's seen them.
And he's looking at
Looking
them,
at them.
and he begins to say, mutter the words of God, so to speak.
Yeah.
And sort of still, in any humane situation,
Yeah.
you would immediately say, hey, don't go down.
Yeah.
Look, they're killing people there.
Yeah.
You just stay here, you run away, you escape.
Yes.
He, instead of telling that person, the tourist, that people are being killed, if you go down, actually pushes him down the zip line so that he goes towards the ground.
Yeah. So he's pushing him in the mouth of death.
Yes,
Yes.
he's basically asking for him to be killed.
Killed. And a lot of people commented that does this person who is doing the zip line doesn't have situational awareness. So for anybody who has done adventure sports, I'd like to tell you that the minute you don that helmet, you're standing at that height, your adrenaline is rushing so much that the only sound you can hear is the sound of your heartbeat. So for anybody who's done bungee jumping or these kind of zip lines, you would know that what I am talking about. So let's not put hate on that man because the man is absolutely oblivious. He cannot hear anything at that height, right? Am I right? If you've
No,
done it, you
absolutely.
know.
I mean, look, perhaps he should have looked down. But you see, he's clearly in a moment.
Yes.
He's on a holiday.
Yes.
He's trying something perhaps for the first time.
Yes.
He's excited.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
He wants to have a good time.
Yes.
And how can we resent him for thinking like that?
Yes, absolutely.
He's obviously not thinking. Who actually thinks? Think about it. If tomorrow you go on a zip line, will you think that the guy behind me is going to send me into the mouth of terrorists?
No, you trust the person who's
How
operating
can you
the
think
zip
that?
line.
Who thinks that? So this is a betrayal of humanity.
True.
That man, and think about it, the man who is the tourist has done nothing wrong to this zipline operator.
Correct.
The zipline operator is not even a terrorist, but such is his hate towards an Indian Hindu that he purposefully is sending him into the mouth of death.
Let's not forget that.
This is the honest truth. We cannot run away.
Run away.
Yes, there are many people, hundreds of people have protested for the first time in Kashmir against terrorism. I'm not denying that. But at the same time, we cannot deny that this is also true. We cannot deny that 15 people have been arrested for enabling those. All this question was being asked that Pahalgam was many hundred kilometers away from the border.
Yeah.
How did these people come here?
They're idiots. Who asks these questions? You walk in, you come there for
No,
God's sake.
but even now we know the answer.
Yeah.
The answer is there were 15 people, perhaps many more,
Many more.
who helped them slip in.
Correct.
Who guided them.
Correct.
It is because of this local assistance. I knew from day one this cannot happen without local assistance. You cannot cross the LOC and reach Pahalgam with automatic rifles and other ammunitions without help from the local people. And it's been proved 15 people have been arrested. Many more people perhaps
be
was
arrested.
involved and haven't been arrested yet. Perhaps they'll be arrested later. And now this zipline incident is the most clear, distinct, unambiguous proof that there are locals who have harbored this kind of intense, radical, frightening hatred for Indian Hindus.
Correct. And this comes at a very strategic time. The reason I'm saying it's a strategic time because Prime Minister Modi, at the invitation of His Royal Highness Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi Crown Prince, was in Saudi Arabia. He went there on the 22nd of April and they were co-chairing the second meeting of this India-Saudi Arabia strategic partnership, right, when this happened. And he had to cut short. So, why do you think that they strategically planned this meeting? Do you think it had something to do with this?
Look, this has been a resentment that Pakistan and China has harbored for a long time. I just want to segue for a second and talk about something.
Sure.
everybody's talking about Pakistan. Let me say on your show today,
Yeah.
I do not believe, and I know I will be proved right,
Yeah.
that something like this happened in Pahalgam without the Chinese knowing about it.
Yeah.
It is not possible. And today, actually, Pakistan has very little to gain apart from this bluster. See, Pakistan is trying to keep this issue alive because it is a failed state.
Yeah.
It is a state that is breaking away at all portions, right? Balochistan, there is trouble. Northwest Frontier province is highly restive. Sindh, there is problems. So essentially, all that is left of Pakistan is the rump of West Punjab. So Pakistan is already a failed state, but the real people who gain from this are the Chinese. Because you see, what happens because of this is a lot of the supply chains that were moving towards India because of Donald Trump's tariffs and so on and so forth, including Apple and many other companies, this is to seed doubt in their head. This is to seed doubt that, oh, should we move to India? What if India goes to war? And China wants that even if those supply chains move, they should move to Vietnam and Cambodia. Those countries are basically in the hands of China.
Correct.
Their supply chains are completely dominated by China.
Yeah.
China will not allow these supply chains to move to India. And China wants desperately to stall India's growth. This is perfect. You seed the doubt, and then you say there might be nuclear war, you slow down India's growth, and you essentially destroy India's moment.
So, when do you think that Pakistan has changed its masters?
I think Pakistan has changed its masters ever since it went to, it went in gloriously, if you remember, saying that, oh, the Americans have fled. Now Afghanistan will be under our control. And lo behold, it failed. And you see, the Pakistani army is highly duplicitous.
Yes, it is.
It is extremely two-faced and duplicitous. It basically, even today, the Americans are giving them money to maintain their F-16s. Please remember. So they are trying to play both games at the same time. They are trying to get money from the Americans also, and of course their all-weather friend, so to speak, China. But you see, China is also trying to do these things on the cheap because the 50 billion that they put in to build the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor,
yes.
CPEC, which is part of their Belt and Road Initiative.
Yes, yes.
That has actually failed because it goes through Balochistan. They built an airport in Gwadar.
Yeah.
The whole thing is crumbled. Today, Balochistan is up in the air. There is constant conflict there. Chinese personnel have died. So their entire investment of trying to build a new route via Gwadar has failed. And now it has become so bad that Balochistan might break out from Pakistan. So China is also desperate to do something. And the easy way to do is to get a couple of these ragtag jihadi mujahideens, put them into Kashmir and kill a few people. So that the whole thing then becomes, clouded. Our attention moves from growth to tackling these things. And remember the other thing, deep inside India, we are in our final battle with Naxals,
Yes.
who have always received money from China.
Yes, the Maoists and the Naxals.
We
yes.
are wiping them out one by one stronghold after the other. Now we are deep into the forests, and the final strongholds are about to fall.
Okay.
So China has to do something.
Yeah.
Right, and China is therefore doing what it can in places like Bangladesh, in Myanmar, on our eastern border, and now of course they've triggered via Pakistan this crisis.
Okay. One thing about the Pakistani army that you've said that they're duplicitous. I think this army is an extremely smart army. They don't want to fight any wars because they perhaps cannot fight any wars. This is the reason they have outsourced their work to jihadis, and that to jihadis who they bring out of jail. So if you take a look at the men who have been caught, the terrorists who've been caught, do you know they've been caught with their Pakistani ID, and a research of them claims that they are out from jail. So they were actually handpicked out of jail and then taught and sent to India. Can you imagine this? I mean, this is the only army in the world that outsources its work to jihadis because they know they cannot fight an all-out war with India, because they know what happened in 1971. They have lost every single war with India, and in 1971 they had 93,000 POWs, for God's sake. So they know what's going to hit them if they go out on a full-fledged war. Now I want to come
No,
back.
but I just want to quickly,
Yeah.
of course, you can ask me the next question, but
Yeah.
before that, let me just point out, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The Pakistani army, in fact, was, of course, once part of the Indian army. They were all
Correct.
trained by the British.
Yeah.
All Pakistani, senior people, all their officers get very good training both in England and in America and so on and so forth. Therefore, they're very close to Western powers because they have that connection. But over the years, what has happened is, as Pakistan has failed again and again and again, they have no money. And the Pakistani army has actually never won a single war that it has ever fought.
Yeah.
It has lost every single war it has ever fought. And now they have a huge resource crunch. The Pakistanis are terrified that, see, look, India can fight a protracted war.
Yes.
We can fight a war that will now go on for 3 months.
Yes.
The
Or 3 years,
Pakistanis-
like Russia and Ukraine.
One hopes not 3 years, but yeah, 3 months for sure.
Yeah.
But the Pakistanis cannot hold out more than a couple of weeks. They just don't have the wherewithal for this.
Yeah.
So that's why they keep waving this nuclear flag. So they are desperate to do things that doesn't come to their doorstep and doesn't make them fight long wars.
Is that one of the reasons that we are reading in the news about Pakistani officers as well as soldiers who are deserting the army, who are quitting the army? I don't know exactly what the figures are. I have got the figures of 4,500 soldiers and 250 officers. Maybe you know better than me.
No, so,
see,
there is-
desertions happen in armies before war anyways. We know that. But these are very high numbers.
So obviously one doesn't know exactly what the numbers are. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But this sort of thing has been happening in the Pakistani army for a long time.
Yeah.
Number two, the Pakistani army is now signaling this entire thing, and I think people are misreading this on Indian Twitter. This entire thing that Asim Munir sent his family abroad. Other generals are sending their families abroad. This has nothing to do with anything else. This is basically them signaling to us that they are willing to use nuclear weapons.
Okay.
Sending your families abroad is a clear sign that they are trying to signal to us that they are willing to use nuclear weapons.
Is that also why they have taken out this rumor that he's hiding in a nuclear bunker?
Yes, all of these things are signs that they are trying to bring down the threshold and say that there is some amorphous red line which if you cross we will use nuclear weapons. But I am telling you, it is very unlikely that the Pakistani army will ever use nuclear weapons. And there are two reasons for this. Number one, the Pakistani army has become essentially fattened on illicit money from the Pakistani economy.
Yes.
And none of those jokers want to let go the economic fiefdoms and empires that they have created.
Yes.
You see, if they use nuclear weapons, obviously it's not like India will not use nuclear weapons back,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And if we do that, Pakistan is finished.
Yes.
Right? It's a much smaller country. It is absolutely finished.
Yes.
We will still survive.
Yes.
Maybe they'll hit North India, but the whole of South, whole of East, maybe West will remain.
Yeah.
But we will wipe them out.
Yeah.
So the point is, none of them want to give up that life. They have
They
billions of dollars that they've captured essentially from the Pakistani economy.
Yeah.
They are essentially feudal rulers.
Yes, they are.
They don't want to give that life at all. This is multi-generational wealth. So they are not going to use nuclear weapons. This is all bluff. You see, I always say this,
Yeah.
and may I say this to you?
Yeah.
This is West Punjabi bluster.
Yeah.
You know, दिल्ली में कहते हैं उसको चौड़ा होना.
चौड़ा होना.
चौड़ा होना.
हाँ, चौड़ा होके
This is
चलता
all
है.
चौड़ा होके बात करना.
हाँ.
This is all West Punjabi bluster.
Yeah.
This is the braggadocio of the incompetent and the bluster of the foolish. They are not going to use nuclear weapons. Otherwise, there was a big red line all these years. You know, when we were in college and studying all this, we were always told if India crosses into Pakistani territory, they will use nuclear weapons. We sent jets over after Pulwama. What did they do?
Nothing.
So they can't. And also remember, our second strike capability is stronger and stronger than ever before. We have, a very good naval second strike capability now. The Pakistanis know all this.
We also have a great deterrent capacity.
Of course, and second strike is
They,
that deterrent,
yes,
right?
yeah.
We have a very strong second strike deterrent capacity. So the Pakistanis know all this. They will not use nuclear weapons. They are, as always, trying to signal these things. You see, very famously, it is always said about Pakistan, it is the only country in the world which basically gets into negotiations with a gun pointed towards its own head.
Why do you say that? Now, in this
Because
case,
it's their what is their point always? If you don't give us money, our whole country will go up in flames. If you don't give us money, we will do jihad war. If you don't give us money, we will use so in all of them the result is that they will get destroyed. So their argument is always about them getting destroyed.
Ironically, on that point that you've said that, UK-based Sky News Yalda Hakim had asked the Defense Minister Khwaja
Khwaja
Asif,
Asif, yes.
do you admit, sir, that Pakistan has a long history of backing and supporting and training and funding these terrorist organizations? So you remember his response? He says, we have been doing the dirty work for United States for about 3 decades, and the West, including Britain. And then he says, it was a mistake. We suffered for it. And why is this that you're saying this to me? So I want to ask you, why do you think he made this statement and now? And what does he imply by this?
So I think Pakistan is now trying to shame the West.
Yes.
Essentially saying, look, we are going to openly say we did it. But this was no secret. If Pakistan thinks that this is some deep, dark secret, it isn't.
And
everybody knew this.
Who are they fooling? You were created out of breaking India in 3 parts. You were a garrison state. You were created so that Russia and China are stopped from a direct access to the ocean, to the Indian Ocean and the Arab Ocean. Okay. So Arabian Sea. So who are they fooling? You have always been a garrison state. This is the reason that you exist. You have always lived on the arms of the West.
Yes.
So all of a sudden you get up and say, I'm doing the dirty work. Well, that's why you were created. Is that something that the general doesn't know? My point was this particular time. Why is he saying that? Is that because also they have a new master, China?
Yeah, no, of course, there's a Chinese look in everything Pakistan does today. Pakistan has become de facto the vassal state of China.
Yeah.
It always does Chinese bidding, but that's not very different. It used to be the vassal state of America.
Yeah.
But what has happened now is that they're trying to play this dual game.
Yeah.
They're trying to extract money from the Americans also and get stuff from the Chinese also. But I mean, lo behold, America and China had loggerheads. And I think they realized today that all of this was possible. This duplicitousness was possible with the Democrats in power. Now with the Trump administration in power, all of these things, will be looked at far more intensively.
Yeah.
So therefore, they are trying to build this narrative that, look, we did your dirty work and, look, take, pity on us and this, that and the other. But again, like I said, I mean, at the end of the day, this was a secret to who? Only Yalda Hakim pretended as if she's hearing this for the first time. But, I mean, it is no secret to anyone.
I saw she was quite speechless. She didn't know what to come back to. But, coming back on the American...
That's because the UK also is being taken over by the Islamists. That's the other thing.
Yes, of course.
Anyway.
So coming back to the Americans, what has happened in Pahalgam is a very chilling reminder to the Chittisinghpura attack in Anantnag. Do you remember the Chittisinghpura?
Of course.
It occurred in March 2000, right before US President Bill Clinton comes to India, right? And now this time US President J.D. Vance was visiting with his Hindu wife Usha, and Vance himself has gone and said on TV that my wife has a massive following, in fact a bigger fan following than him in India. Again, 2 American, 1 president and another vice president, they have also timed this attack right now. And what are they trying to prove when the American presidents and vice presidents are visiting India? So first you've seen they're targeting Modi. Is this again a target, or are they targeting Modi? Are they upset that India is making such great relationships with the world? And
no, they've always been upset about India. See, look, India today has some of its best relationships in the Gulf.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
UAE.
Yeah.
In fact, for all the other stuff that Qatar does, we have a good relationship even with Qatar, Jordan, and so on and so forth, right? So, and of course, Israel. I mean, India is the only country which can effectively maintain relationship with the Israelis also, the Palestinians also, the Russians also, Zelensky also, and so on and so forth, right? All of this obviously doesn't go down well, neither with the Chinese nor with the Pakistanis, right? China de facto doesn't have any friends in the world. China only has vassals that they control and manipulate.
Yes, yes,
India has genuine friends.
yes.
So this doesn't go down well. And you see that the Pakistanis have always instrumentalized Islam. If you see that speech of Asim Munir,
Yeah.
people like Asim Munir and all these jokers in the Pakistani army cannot tolerate the fact that the UAE is today one of the most, in the Gulf, one of the most liberal countries.
It is. I have lived there.
A great, temple has been built.
Yeah.
Couple of years ago in the UAE, a couple of years ago, I went to see the Grand Mosque in Abu Dhabi.
Yes.
And as I walked down that corridor, as you enter the Grand Mosque, it was full of messages of brotherhood among different religions. And I found that very interesting. So the UAE is trying to recraft its entire universe, right? As are the Saudis. So they don't like all of this. And therefore, Pakistan's whole thing that we were created on the basis of Islam. Look, Jinnah was a cigarette smoking, cigar smoking,
Coke eating, alcohol
wine drinking,
drinking.
pork eating man. So
yeah.
much for being a great Islamist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So how much Jinnah knew about Islam is question mark.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, Pakistan's very existence stands on a bunch of lies. Right? And they have never been able to cohesively come together to think about their country. Think about it. At the end of the day, why are they so crazy about Kashmir? Because they have nothing else. You would think Pakistan, which is a water-stressed country, would be thinking about electricity-stressed country, would be thinking about how to get electricity, how to get power, how to, rebuild their country. But even today, they are saying Kashmir is a jugular vein. I want to ask Asim Munir, if it's your jugular vein, how have you lived without your jugular vein for so long? Then you must be a vampire.
And he's hell-bent on cutting it again, right?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, what is he thinking?
What is he saying?
And
I'm telling you, this is all West Punjabi bluster.
one of the things I also consider is that Asim Munir's, speeches, a lot of these Pakistani generals, they say all of this to remain relevant.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, they would absolutely lose their relevance. I mean, what is the point? What are they doing? Now he's gone absolutely missing. So, I mean, how do you control this mass of people? And let's remember, before he made this statement, his term was going to get over. There was trouble in Balochistan. They've recently even put that Baloch leader in jail. There is trouble from Afghanistan. There's trouble in Sindh. Everywhere they're experiencing trouble. So how do they get the Awam together? They keep making these cry wolf stories about India, Kashmir. India is going to attack them. And a lot of these, we read about the Pakistanis online. They're laughing about it. They're like, please come, don't bother us. Take them away.
No, I saw, Najam Sethi was giving an interview.
Yeah.
In between that interview, after 10 minutes, his electricity went away.
I saw that just yesterday.
And Najam Sethi is one of the most influential and prosperous people in that country.
Yeah.
And he must be living, I don't know where he lives in Lahore, but he must be living in one of the fanciest places.
Yeah.
This is their condition.
Yeah.
You see, at the end of the day, this is the problem. Pakistan's entire existence. The Pakistani army should have really built infrastructure, given people electricity, water, all of it, good agriculture, growth. Instead of that, all they've done is their entire existence is based on one thing: hatred of India and hatred of Hindus.
Yes. And I think Modi ji signifies that as a,
Yeah, and that's why it's like a red flag to them, right?
Also, another thing that I've noticed about them, speaking of this, is that India has recently banned these 16 channels, right?
Yeah.
Somebody was telling me that a majority of their money, whether it is on Twitter or whether it is on also YouTube, comes from this engagement farming with India. That is why they are always talking India, and a lot of their viewership is Indian. Now they are laughing. They're saying that their Indian viewership is going to get cut as well. Have you seen this? What do you think of
No, it's
the?
interesting. I mean, I think some of the channels are absolutely right. Sadly, one or two channels which I think, because I follow this topic, are actually far more sensible and are quite critical about the army. I mean, there's this channel called the Pakistani Experience or the Pakistan Experience, whatever it's called. I think that channel, for instance, a couple of others are younger people who are far more balanced, and those are the voices we should engage with.
But there are
But
enough.
there are a lot of crazy people also.
Not only are they crazy, I know of some Pakistani anchors who are quite popular in India, and I also know that they are
All
in
this
the.
Hamid Mir types.
I don't want to take their names
Yeah.
specifically, ladies and men both. They are in the pocket of ISI.
Oh,
The
sure, for
ISI
sure,
gives them instructions.
for
Let's
sure.
just be very clear about it. Even Imran Khan, his wife, who was supposed to be the spiritual lady, come on,
Yeah.
turns out she is a spy, and she was working on the behests of the ISI herself, and they would feed her what was going to happen next, and she would make these prophecies,
And
right?
he would believe it.
And he would believe them, and obviously over a period of time, if you make 10, 20 prophecies, anybody would believe it.
Believe it, yeah.
And that's how he got trapped into marrying her. And I remember when he married her, because it was a big hue and cry. She had 5 children and a husband, and she left them to marry him, and she said that he will become the Pakistan
Prime
prime
Minister.
minister, and then they will return to the golden age of Islam. She made two prophecies. This is what I read online.
No,
What?
this is so obviously that country has become a bit crazy. You see,
Yeah.
sometimes this happens.
Yeah.
A strange sort of madness is plaguing Pakistan,
Yeah.
right? Like I said, to answer your first question, among the channels that have been banned, I
Yeah.
think some other really crazy channels like that crazy Zayed Hamid,
Yeah.
who wears this funny red something, whatever, completely insane.
Yeah.
We should have banned people like them also, number one. One or two, which I think are slightly more sensible and younger people we should engage with. They have also, but that's collateral damage in
Yeah.
conflict. Who
Yeah.
can do what about that?
They have been banned because of psyops. They were apart from whatever they were doing under the ISI or whatever, they were also indulging in psychological operations and cognitive warfare. And this is the reason they have.
But I don't. I mean, of course, like they have large Indian viewerships and all of that. But many of these guys are so crude in their approach. I don't know who gets influenced by them, but maybe Kashmiris do, and so on and so forth. Maybe some other parts of India also. So I mean, I shed no like this is not, to me, this is absolutely kosher.
Yeah.
We are in a time of conflict. The government needs to do whatever it needs to do,
Yeah, and we are absolutely
and
behind
we
the
are
government for
perfectly
this.
fine with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
They whatever. And if one or two people who are okay become collateral damage, such is life.
Yeah.
I mean, 26 people have got murdered. We are at a time of war. There is collateral damage in war, and we don't care about that.
Yeah.
Now the other question is that, you see, today, if you zoom out and look at it a little more intensively, you see, I wrote a few years ago that one of the things that explain the India-Pakistan conflict the best is game
Game
theory.
theory. Yeah, tell us about that game theory
So
and
you
the new
see, game
normal.
theory. I don't want to go into great details because it gets a bit technical. But essentially, today Pakistan and India are both governed by people who have, ideologies that look into the infinite, so to speak. Right? They are not playing the short game, so to speak. They're both playing the long game. Who are these people? One, of course, is the Pakistani army and the Islamists. They are waiting for this great Ghazwa-e Hind to come true, and they
know.
will, Zahid Ahmed and idiots like him always talk about this, that they will take over India, they will whatever, kill everybody, this, that, and so on and so forth. So they are playing, and when will that happen? If you ask them, they'll be like, one day, 100 years later, also, God knows when. But for the first time, you see, all these days in India, they were confronted with administrations that were playing the short game. They wanted peace to happen, they had near term goals. But today, with the RSS and others who are also playing the long game, They're saying that's fine. You say you're going to destroy us in 100 years, we will fight you for 100 years.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
We've already fought you for so many.
We have fought you for 75, we will fight you for another 100.
Correct.
If need be, we will fight you for 1,000.
Yeah.
Right? And let's see who wins this long game. So this, both parties playing the long game puts us in a situation which is not going to get easily resolved. You see, earlier, like I always say, one of the best decisions an Indian government ever took was not to agree on the 4-point formula
Okay.
of Musharraf, right?
Okay.
It was a big mistake. You see, today we are finding out why. Already there are thousands of people in India who are supposedly married to Pakistanis and having children with them. What is the nationality of the child? Good question. Will the child come and live here? How many times do the spouses travel here? We don't know, right? One of the things that 4-point formula had was that essentially any number of people can cross the border and, in the two sides of Kashmir, so to speak, right?
Okay.
What would have happened is within 10 to 15 years, there would be this, marriage within the community, so to speak, right? Both Kashmiris, but on two sides, right? And the Pakistanis would overwhelm, this situation. So many people who would then have spouses who are Pakistani, children with Pakistanis, would then renew this demand that this is anyway Pakistan, cut it away from India. This was always the strategy. The Pakistani army and the ISI thought about it very carefully. It is amazing and shocking to me that India even contemplated accepting this. Thank God wiser counsel prevailed. But that India even contemplated accepting this terrible 4-point formula is just astonishes me. I mean, I just cannot imagine how little strategic understanding we have.
Just take a look at all the news channels. Here, the women are on the borders and screaming and shouting. Well, why are you screaming and shouting that that they have to go back and the children have to go back? You very well knew that you walked into this. India has been at war. Pakistan has been at war with India so many times. Are you pretending that you didn't know? Some of them have come on a visa and they are crying about going back. Well, why are you crying about going back? You knew you were on a visa.
No, see, these are very difficult things. I understand, I just want to add a caveat by saying, look, I understand that in many communities, there are still connections with Pakistan, like there is with Bangladesh. There might be family members, this, that, all kinds of things. This makes the situation very tough for the government. You see, this is why when people scream and shout on Twitter saying, oh, why aren't we immediately doing this? If you are sitting in government, you have to, there are so many complexities involved that nobody can take a rash decision. We have to be cognizant of that. Having said that, I think this is a very big problem. And because Pakistan is so resolute about being our enemy, we have to fix this cross-border marriages and, the nationality of the children. We don't know. All sorts of complications arise out of this. So therefore, we have to figure it out on how to fix this.
There is not much to figure it out. If you're married to a Pakistani, Sharia law is applicable there. The children under Sharia law belong to the father. So there should be no questions on it. With regards to the mother, with regards to the wife who is an Indian, Pakistan should fast track these, citizenships. Or after a while, let's say give them a year or two, and after that they should be persona non grata in India, because we cannot constantly have these issues. See, we can sit and debate this and be on humanitarian ground, this that, only they count as humans.
No, this is true. I'm only saying that at the moment we'll have to look at what our citizenship law states, right? We will have to look at what are the changes we can make, how can we counter this. All of this is legalese. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't claim to be, and therefore some of these matters have to be looked into by people who study this law, immigration law, citizenship law, and so on and so forth. But it is quite clear to me, as you're saying, that there is a problem.
We have a huge problem.
There is a problem, and there is no running away from this. There is a major problem, and this problem would have really exploded had we accepted Musharraf's 4-point formula. Thank God we didn't. We never should. right? So how we will solve this problem is for serious lawyers to take up and
But
look
then,
into this.
and having constant problems online, and we also have enough of news channels who would love to blast these women. And these women, I'm sorry to say, but these families, these people, they're pretending to be victims. You're not victims. We are in terms of in times of war. Then you have to behave properly.
No, and this is the other thing that I object to. You see, when so many people have been killed so
Killed.
brutally,
Yeah.
the conversation should stay with them for a while.
Yes.
Even before we have mourned for a minute about those people,
Yeah.
we jump into trying to find other victims and
Yeah.
say, oh, these people are victims. The real victims are the people who have been brutally murdered.
Yes.
Let's stay with that story for a while.
Yes.
Who are these people? They were all innocent people who had gone for a tourism holiday
Yes.
to Kashmir.
Yeah.
This is tragic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were not doing anything wrong to anyone.
Correct.
They were not fighting anyone. They were not people who were using arms. They were not trained military people. They were just people who had gone on a holiday.
Yeah.
Most of them.
And
So it's really tragic.
as a response to that, immediately, India suspended the Indus Water Treaty.
I have
right?
written in the past
Yeah.
in very great detail
Yeah.
about this. The Indus Water Treaty is heavily skewed towards Pakistan.
Correct. And they.
At that time, when we agreed to the Indus Water Treaty, whether we should have agreed to such skewed terms or not needs to be debated. However, this is one of the Indus Water Treaty till now has been one of those examples, and nobody gives credit to India for this.
Yes.
It's one of those great examples of a treaty that has survived several wars.
Yes.
And in that treaty, most of the water we give to Pakistan.
Imagine
In
we have
fact-
such dry states
In
here.
fact,
Yeah.
no upper riparian state in the world has the kind of agreement, the kind of generosity in agreement that we have in the Indus Water Treaty with Pakistan.
Correct.
Does China have such a treaty with us?
No.
It's our upper riparian state.
Yeah.
Does it have? Not at all. They are always threatening to put dams,
Yeah.
stop our water, divert our water, and so on and so forth. So, the Indus Water Treaty is an example. Actually, the Pakistanis should really be grateful that India has allowed it to, run for so long. Today, I think there are many things we can do. People say stop the water, stop the water. We cannot unilaterally entirely stop the water. There are many legal ramifications to that. But what we can do are very simple things. You see, India doesn't even use the entire amount of the quota of water owed to us. We should very simply, to begin with, insist that according to the treaty, all the water that is owed to us, we will use every drop.
Drop of it.
That itself will make a huge impact. So we can start at the baseline. Now, I believe, I see on Twitter, I don't know whether that's true or not, some of the smaller rivers like Chenab and stuff, we have started doing things to those rivers. So we will see how this pans out. But I think it's important for your audience to know that there is no point in people screaming and shouting on Twitter saying stop the water, stop the water. There are a lot of international legal ramifications to this. We cannot one day wake up and suddenly stop the entire water. But there are many things we can do to really push for a greater equitable distribution of water under the Indus Water Treaty. There is no reason for the Indus Water Treaty to remain so unilaterally generous.
Not only have we been generous with water, let us not forget that we have been extremely generous with our land as well. The land that was cut and given to Bangladesh, what is today Bangladesh and Pakistan, belonged to India. So they are thankless there. They're also thankless with our water. And despite that, they come and kill our people. So I think that if there was anybody, any civilization or any set of people who have ever been thankless, I think Pakistanis take the cake. Anyways, coming to back to
No, I agree. I mean, and see, the Pakistanis are also very foolish, right? For the longest time, we unilaterally gave them most favored status in trade.
Correct.
Right? They never reciprocated. But because we are the much bigger country, we were like, it's okay, we will give it to you unilaterally. Most of the goods and services Pakistan can ever hope to sell, the natural destination for them is India. You have a 1.5 billion strong economy right next to you. But you're not being able to sell there because, you have developed such an enmity with them. And you are trying to now sell to different parts of the world where logistics are difficult, transit is difficult. the Pakistanis, again, there's this strange strain of irresponsible, foolhardy arrogance. And I go back to my initial point. This is a very West Punjab trait. It's a cultural thing. It's this trait that, okay, I am to dead only, but I will destroy you also in the process. But that's not helping the state. This is a country of 200 million people who are going down the drain, right? But they don't understand this, and they have never understood it. And I think they're determined to continue this enmity with India. No good will come out of this at the end of the day. We just have to ensure two things. Look, let me make this point very clear because a lot of people don't understand it. Today, there is relative military parity between India and Pakistan. Relative. Some places we have a little more, some places they have a little more, and whatever. Plus, there is nuclear parity. We also have nuclear weapons, they also have nuclear weapons, right? Okay. But if India goes to 10 trillion, see, the Pakistan economy is not going to improve. If India goes to 10 trillion, we will be able to outspend them on critical military apparatus by a measure of many times.
Correct.
And that gap will increase and increase until it becomes impossible for them to start anything without grave consequences immediately. But they are trying to disrupt, the Chinese are trying to disrupt that process. They know that we are about to cross Japan and become the fourth largest economy. Maybe we'll become the third largest economy very soon. They want to stop this. We have to be very focused that we have to keep internal peace and get to $10 trillion. That's the only way we will be able to get the aircrafts we need, the ships we need. We have to really increase the military gap with Pakistan.
So you think that they are after India because of India's rising economic might? Is that what you're saying?
I think that's a very big part. Jealousy is a very big part.
Okay.
Also, they're very frightened for the same reason that if we keep growing at this rate, they will not be. They anyway cannot keep up now. Only thing they have is nuclear. And of course, they have some help with the Chinese and whatever. But how long will the Chinese and the Americans keep giving them ammunition and very expensive ammunitions, right? They can't. So at one point, the gap will really become large, and they're terrified of that. So they want to disrupt us at every step. And we cannot allow that to happen.
And do you think that how India responded? We had Mr. Jaishankar go and brief 45 countries,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So, based on your observations, how bold have these moves, diplomatic moves, reshaped India's image as a decisive power?
No, I think, look, let me be absolutely clear. What Prime Minister Modi has done, most people thought it cannot be done.
Correct.
I remember when the jets first, swept across the Pakistani border.
Yeah.
I got a message from another academic friend.
Yeah.
In international relations, we study something called the stability-instability paradox.
Yeah.
The stability-instability paradox explains that how nuclear states always supposedly keep their skirmishes below a certain threshold and not risking nuclear war. And Pakistan had always said this was their red line, right? Crossing into the border. I remember this message came to me from a friend of mine outside India saying, there goes, I still remember the message, there goes the stability-instability paradox, ... Because you need a strong leader to break these boundaries.
Correct.
And protect his own country or her own country.
Correct.
You need a determined leader to do this. You cannot have a dithering leader and achieve this.
Yes.
So what Prime Minister Modi has achieved for our security and sovereignty, generations later we will understand it fully.
Some of us still don't understand.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Generations later, we will understand this fully. And I truly believe that we need this kind of thing for many years now to come so that we can foolproof our sovereignty. Look, I want to make this point because, your audience needs to understand this. In India, we as people because we have never really faced a war that has completely crippled our everyday existence. They've only been on the borders.
Correct.
We don't understand how fragile our sovereignty is. And because we're very large, right?
Yes.
Everybody says in a different part of India, people say, "Arey, something is happening in the north, who cares?" We are very large, and therefore we don't understand how fragile our sovereignty is. Our sovereignty is being challenged from all ends: China, Pakistan, eastern border, western border, internally, all kinds of things, right? We need a public consensus, Neena. A public consensus among people like you and me, among the general public, that our sovereignty is the most important thing. Because if our children tomorrow cannot even have a map of their own, the map itself is destroyed of India. What remains? The cartographic imagination is very important. So if we cannot even protect that, what will we protect? But in India, we are very foolish about this. We always think, oh, no, no, no. So what? We need to be fair to everybody else. No, we first have to defend our own sovereignty.
We have to be first fair to ourselves
Correct.
and to our people, and after that, if something is left, then we will give it to other people.
Absolutely.
We cannot constantly be bending over backwards
No.
and showing ourselves as the people who are patient, the people who keep giving, because our patience and our sahanshilta, as we call it in Hindi, is being taken as cowardice, and this is the reason they are constantly attacking us from here and
I
there.
just want to make one 10-second point, if you allow me. See, the thing is, you must ask the question, all these days the Kashmiris never used to come out in large numbers and protest after a terrorist attack. Why are they doing it today? Why did Umar Abdullah give such a sober speech in the assembly? Earlier they used to say something different. You see, for a long time in Kashmir, we never showed them what is the benefit. When central rule came to Kashmir after the abrogation of Article 370, for the first time, Kashmiris saw what it means to be Indian. How these millions of people coming and spending money can transform their lives and create generational wealth. Today, Kashmir is one of the places where I remember the days when even Indian SIM cards wouldn't work in Kashmir. Today, Kashmir regularly, off season, on season, there is nothing. Some of the most expensive hotel rooms in India are in Kashmir, right? So we have showcased this. That's why they realize, oh, this is the benefit of being part of India. That's why they're responding like that. And that's why Pakistan and China hate it, right? Because they're also realizing the sand is shifting on the ground.
You've been a journalist and a scholar, and I want to ask you, what specific changes have you observed in India's diplomatic rhetoric and action since the 2013 attack in Poonch, when the then defense minister, Mr. Anthony, said terrorists along with persons dressed in Pakistani uniform had come to India and they had killed our soldiers,
No, look, I mean,
versus the Pahalgam?
it's quite clear that in the earlier times, we were very mealy mouthed about this. There was all this, old Aman Ki Asha and all
Aman
kinds
ki
of things.
tamasha.
Aman Ki Tamasha. Look, let me be very clear. As sensible citizens, of course, we would support something legitimate which brings peace between the two countries. All people who are not crazy would want peace only. Nobody benefits from war. But if you're fighting an enemy that does not want peace, that only wants conflict, what can you do? Then you have to fight. And then to constantly say that no, talks with Pakistan should be uninterrupted and uninterruptible, what does it even mean? They're killing people. How can we have talks with somebody who's constantly wants to be your enemy, wants to destroy you? How can we have uninterrupted and uninterruptible talks with them? These are meaningless statements.
No, only an idiot will say that when somebody is burst into your house, somebody has jumped
Yeah.
in your house to murder you and steal from you, that we should engage in dialogue with that person.
It makes no sense.
Nobody does it in their personal life, but they make these statements just because they can get away on television, and they think they're appearing nice, not realizing that the people with brains don't think this works. Did it work till now? For
No.
years you've done this. Has it worked?
It hasn't.
Hasn't PM Modi gone to Pakistan? How many
And actually, when
olive
Prime
branches
Minister,
will he? Yeah.
if you remember when Prime Minister Modi first came to power,
Yeah.
you remember that
Yes.
sudden trip he
Yes.
made to go to that Nawaz Sharif's granddaughter's, I think, wedding.
Because he called her, because he
Correct.
called him.
Yes.
And imagine a gesture like that, and how did they respond to that gesture? Yeah, they started attacking right after
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we are dealing with an enemy who thinks that any nice olive branch or any nice gesture is a sign of weakness and not a sign of strength. So you
No, and
can,
sadly, let me say this honestly, and this is
yeah.
a very important topic you have touched, Neena. There are many people who somehow don't want India to take a strong stand. And I'm talking about Indians.
Yeah.
This is extremely unfortunate. I'm not going to use any stronger words, but I am definitely going to say that number one, they are wrong. Number two, this is extremely unfortunate because those voices confuse people about how we can fight to save our sovereignty. Thankfully, those voices are now largely marginalized. I think many more fervent voices who are nationalistic are coming out, who truly are devoted to serving the country and protecting its sovereignty. Again, I reiterate, every sensible person wants peace. But peace at the cost of what? How can I have peace with you, Neena? Just as an example, if you don't want peace with me, that makes no sense. I can't unilaterally have peace, right? Peace needs two sides to come together.
It's like having a conversation with a beast who is a carnivorous.
Correct.
It's like wanting to have a conversation with a carnivorous beast to assuage them of their hunger and convince them to eat grass.
Correct.
Will it happen? It doesn't happen.
No.
If one person has decided that they're going to be a torturous person, there's nothing you can do. And Pakistan, to be honest, in psychological terms, behaves like a psychopath. There is no
I
way.
agree.
They will say sweet things, they will try and charm you, they and then the cronies of Pakistanis in this country, they are the ones who will mislead you. There is nobody who does this kind of misleading apart from the cronies of the Pakistani.
And I think today, under Prime Minister Modi, we have taken absolutely the right stance. They used to always say, yes, yes, peace, but Kashmir, right?
Yeah.
Now we say there is no conversation.
Yeah.
We have removed Article 370.
Yeah.
The only conversation we want to have with you is when are you giving back Pakistan occupied Kashmir to us?
Yes.
That is the only conversation we want to have with you.
Yeah.
That is the right stance, completely the right stance. We needed to be firm about this for a long time. It requires us to be firm about these things.
Absolutely. And only firmness
Yeah.
gets respect.
Absolutely.
The minute you will dilly dally, you will not get respect. Neither will you get respect from within your population,
Yeah.
neither will you get respect in the diplomatic or the international community.
And who have we learned this from? The Chinese. Look at the Chinese, right? They do not, there are no lines you can cross with them.
Yes.
Right? I'm not saying we have to become a dictatorship like China.
Yeah.
I am saying we have to learn deeper, stronger, coercive diplomacy. Sometimes our diplomacy also sounds like, Sardar Patel, since I'm a historian, let me say this. Sardar Patel once wrote a letter to Pandit Nehru saying, our man in Beijing sounds like China's ambassador to India rather than India's ambassador to China. What's going on?
Yes.
And this is very common in
Yes.
India.
Yes.
We have to stop this.
Yes.
Okay, whatever's happened in the older generations, fine, whatever. New generations, you have to stop this kind of nonsense in India. We have to build stronger sense of protecting our sovereignty. We have to stop all this BS in India.
Do you think that these people, so there are these rumors that they are in the pockets of Pakistan? Okay, a lot of these people, I'm not going to name them, whether it is television personalities, whether it is politicians, whether it is so called eminent intellectuals. There are rumors that they are in the pockets of Pakistan. We know how they are. Whenever something like this happens, they're always supporting Pakistan. Apart from that, what do you think, or how do you think this cognitive warfare and psyops is affecting Indians?
So the tragic part of the story, Neena, is if somebody was doing it because they were going to pay, getting paid money, I would still understand. This is easy to understand. Somebody's paying you money, you're doing this, right? You stop the money flow, you stop doing this. Sadly, I feel there are many people in India who are ideologically committed to this kind of nonsense. They're not even getting anything. They just like to feel that, oh, no. We are talking about peace. While all these crazy people are talking about war, we want peace. They want this kind of virtue signaling. And you see, this is crazy. Like the other day on Twitter, somebody was saying, and 2 years ago, some young Pakistani girl had got a heart surgery in India. Why did we let her in? People are getting married to Pakistanis. You're not worried about that. Some child got a heart surgery. Stop it. I don't have a problem. But what about, see how our focus is in the wrong direction? Today, everybody is woken up saying 5,000 people have Pakistani married spouses.
83,000 people only in Punjab, I believe. This is what I read on Twitter. I'm not certain.
So we are
5 lakh Pakistani brides in India, apparently.
I mean,
I'm sorry to say, but are there not enough women in this country?
So this is the point, right? I mean, you're fighting over, and see, this is because, see, this information was also hidden.
Yeah.
Did you hear this discussed before?
Never.
No.
Yeah.
Suddenly, this has now come out, right?
Yeah.
So, what is going on in this country at the subterranean level? A lot of stuff we don't even know.
Yeah.
So, we should focus on that. As always, we're fighting about irrelevant rubbish. How can there, if you're saying 83,000 Pakistani brides only in the Punjab?
That's what I read. I read
And
from
this-
someone's
okay.
Twitter. I can't verify this.
Fine.
It's a Twitter, huh?
It could be 83,000, it could be 60,000, it could be whatever thousand.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's 10,000, right? 5,000. It represents a clear and present danger for us. What are we doing about that? We should be discussing that. How is this happening? Who's allowing it? Who's giving the visas? How are these people getting visas and coming up and down? So those are things that we need to discuss.
And how many amongst those are genuine and how many amongst
Yeah.
those
How do you
are
know?
covert operatives?
Exactly. How do you know?
Let's not forget a covert operation psyops, and how many of them are spies.
Yeah, absolutely. And please remember, one of the things that happens from Pakistan is this illicit trade of cocaine.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Everybody knows this.
Yes.
What is happening if you allow this kind of, intermarriages and people coming, people going? God only knows, right? No one knows. No one knows. You're just assuming that this is all, somebody falling in love, somebody whatever.
No, how are they falling in love?
God only
You're
knows.
living in Hyderabad here, the other person is living in Punjab.
Exactly.
How are you meeting and falling in
So
love?
this is obviously orchestrated.
There is no coffee shop that you've gone and met,
Correct.
no? And I'm sorry to say, but there is no dating app that is connecting both of them. Or if there is something, then please inform and
No, this
educate
is
us
all
also.
orchestrated and fake. Marriages are fixed and so on and so forth. We are assuming this is all only for marriage. How do we know? It's a very valid question. How do we know that many of these people are actually not covert operatives? How can we be sure? All of these questions don't need to be asked if everything is peaceful. But when we know that this country only wants bad for us
And they only want war from
and
us.
only want war from
Why
us,
are they seeking brides and grooms here?
and how do we know that some of these people are not basically sleeper cell people?
Yes.
So these are questions we need to ask. These are hard questions. If you ask them, people will say, no, you're warmongering. This is ridiculous nonsense.
Anything to protect the sovereignty of this country
It's
becomes
warmongering.
a warmongering, Islamophobic. You take the name and they will put that label on you, and this is done to shame you. Nobody has the guts to question Pakistan. Nobody wants to ask these hard questions to Pakistan, and that this includes some of our TV journalists, our eminent intellectuals, including our politicians, and which is a shame that we have come to this place. However, I want to wrap it up by saying, by asking you, what sort of innovative cognitive warfare tools, let's say, and since both of us have been on the digital space so much, let's say digital campaigns, diaspora networks, should India adopt to prevent future Pahalgam type attacks, especially when they erode the global narrative that India wants to set? Okay, and they always, like we've discussed about hijacking the narrative. The Hindus have been killed, and television will show that the Pakistani is the victim, or the Indian Pakistani who the marriage, these are the victims. I mean, they are shameless creatures to take the narrative
So
over.
Neena, I've just written about this in the Sunday Guardian in a long piece.
Yeah.
Look, India faces a new kind of two-front war. One is, of course, the physical war. The other is the propaganda war.
Propaganda.
And what is the propaganda war? Allow me to explain this to you. The propaganda war essentially wants to paint India as the second Israel. So everything about India, which has nothing to do with what's happening in the Middle East, everything about India, you will see they copy paste terminology.
Yeah.
Like in Israel, they say settler state. They will call India settler state.
How are we a
Occupier.
settler? Yeah.
Supposedly we're settler state in Kashmir.
Yeah.
I wish, there were many more people
I'm
who
sorry.
could settle in Kashmir, but they're not being able to because they're being killed.
No, and we've had 7 exoduses. Who are we
So-
forgetting that we've been
So
pushed
this
out of
is-
Kashmir?
This is a narrative that is being built. And even the things like boycott, divest, that entire program has been tried against India. We are very large, so it didn't work, right? There are already attacks on Indians in various university campuses and other places saying that no, you come from this, Hindu country and this, that, and the other. Imagine what's happening. What is happening is a global narrative is being built that India is this fascist colonial state, settler state, occupier, all these words that they use, right? To discredit India completely at a time when India is really taking off. And these are being fed to students in campuses and other places. Tomorrow, imagine this is a multi-generational problem. Tomorrow, those people will go out in the world. They will have jobs, they will hire, they will fire, they will raise investments. All of their decisions will have the shadow of this. Exactly what they're doing to the Israelis. So, there will be random attacks on Indians.
It's
which are
already happening. In Canada and
Already
the
happening,
US. They're
right?
just randomly
Exactly.
killing Indians.
So this is a major problem.
This is a
We face a massive two-front war, and one of the fronts is this propaganda war, which seeks to equate us with Israel, without any nuance on how these two things are entirely different.
I think they're doing it on purpose.
Of course, they're doing it on purpose.
Right. I said we are gonna finish it, but we forgot your book.
No
So, Life, Death, and the Ashtavakra Gita.
A very special book to me because this is the last book that was published when Bibek Debroy was still alive, and we can end on a philosophical note talking about this book because you see the Ashtavakra Gita is the most distilled form of Advaita Vedanta's teachings. And it truly teaches a certain distance from the material world. That you will only truly be free if you completely free yourselves even from your senses. Now, I want to point out that we come from a civilization that teaches these things. We are fighting ideologies which are essentially political ideologies.
Correct.
They are only concerned about material acquisition, land, people,
Women.
taking
Zarzoru
over,
Zamin.
women, all of that. This is a conquest ideology.
Yes.
The Islamist ideology is a conquest ideology.
And we think we are at peace, but they are constantly at war with us, especially the Pakistanis.
And they are at war with everyone
Yes,
around the
they're-
world.
yes,
right?
yes.
So that's why it is very important for us to remember that, like the Ashtavakra Gita and other sort of great texts, these make us spiritually evolve, but they should not make us weak.
Yes. And I
These are
think
two different things.
that's something very, very important that you've said on this podcast, because one of the things I have observed is that people take one or two tenets, half bake it,
Yeah.
and sell it as cowardice. They try and claim moral uprightness in order to hide their cowardice. This is how they have baked the whole Hindu philosophy
Absolutely.
as, right?
And this is the big problem. And therefore, I would argue, quite like, for instance, people who practice martial arts understand
Yes.
that you can truly be an absolute warrior if your mind is entirely calm and detached.
Yes.
So you see every move for what they are and you strike back when you need to.
Correct. Correct.
A text like the Ashtavakra Gita or the teachings of Advaita Vedanta or many other teachings in our country, we of course have a world of spiritual knowledge. They should allow us to come to that point of calm and contentment so that we function like warriors. that we're able to see everything clearly for what it is and strike when necessary. They should not make us cowardly.
Absolutely. And this is what even Krishna says in Gita to
That's
Arjun.
right. That's right.
Arise, Arjun, pick up your weapons and fight, because this is your dharma to fight, right? And even in the Ashtavakra Gita, he says, we talk of renunciation. A lot of people misuse the renunciation part of it. And in Ashtavakra Gita, he says clearly, there's this very interesting shlok in chapter 4. He says, only a person who's capable of giving up both desire and the lack of desire.
Correct.
Now,
Absolutely.
Now, you have given up desire, but you also give up the lack of desire.
Absolutely.
I think that this line, I mean, the philosophy, the depth, the intellectualism absolutely beats it. Tell us more about it. What did you understand in this line?
No, look, I mean, this is what. And I want to take, and you very well spotted, that's a beautiful part of the Ashtavakra Gita.
Yeah.
Look, when you say give up and shed all your trappings of senses,
Yeah.
people think only food and this, that, and the other.
Yes.
But remember, it's also cowardice.
Yes.
It's also shallowness.
Yes.
It's also knee-jerkness.
Yes.
All the things we are famously...
Envy, jealousy, greed.
Pettiness.
Pettiness, yes.
So all the things that hold us back, it is also shedding all of that.
Yes.
It is shedding also primarily cowardice also.
Yes.
So therefore, when you shed, the trappings of your senses, you also fundamentally shed cowardice. And therefore, you see situations for as they are and you respond what is necessary. You are not seeking conflict. You don't wish to fight. You don't want to kill anybody. But that doesn't mean that you're cowardly and hiding somewhere.
Correct.
If you are attacked, you will respond the way it is necessary.
Correct. And in your chapter, you've mentioned a lot about your family, your parents in this book.
Yes.
And one of the things that really caught my attention, I went through the book, you've said one of the things that you are never taught when you're growing up is to understand when you're grown up.
That's right.
I thought this one, and you said, and no one tells you that you are not really a grown up, even though you might be age-wise an adult. Some talk, some take years. Tell us about this profound realization that you had.
No, I mean, I of course realized this in a sense when my father fell very, very unwell, as I write in the book, right? I think in a sense Indian children never really grow up until their parents really fall ill.
Yeah.
Because we're always so surrounded by the love of our parents and they're always so sacrificing and this, that and the other. And I have to say, a lot of Indian children are also pampered and so on and so forth, right? So I don't think Indian children really grow up and Indian sons never really grow up until they see their father unwell. So this was a great realization, but I want to connect it also to what we are saying. You see, like we take our parents and their immortality and existence for granted, we also take the mortality of the nation for granted.
Yes, absolutely.
We believe that because from childhood we have seen this map will always remain the same.
No, we were not the same 77 years ago.
That's right. We never stop to think our parents will be healthy if we take responsibility for keeping them healthy at some point, like they did all their lives. Our nation will be healthy and secure if we take responsibility for keeping our nation healthy. This realization, see, the self and the world, are actually intertwined, as you know in philosophy famously, right? Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. The self and the world are very intertwined. And exactly the same way, the self and the nation are also intertwined. Aurobindo understood this very famously. Vivekananda understood this, right? That the self and the nation were very connected. We can only be as strong as Bharat Mata is strong.
Correct.
And like we have to take care of our own mothers and fathers, we need to take care of Bharat Mata, because otherwise to take it for granted and think this will always remain the same, that we might be in for a rude surprise one day.
No, absolutely not. We might be showing patience and forbearance when it comes to Pakistan, but they are not going to return that favor to us. They are a thankless bunch of people.
Quite right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
for
much.
coming and gracing us
This
with
was a
your...
great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I enjoyed talking to you. Thank you very much.
Jai Shri Ram. Namaste.
Jai Shri Ram. Namaste.